Yeah. We back at it. You know how we do. Seed talks, not to make your seeds walk. We back here with Precious. It's been a while since we've been on this bad boy.
Very long time.
And I think we're gonna scratch the surface a little bit today, just talking about the elections, how you feel about that. And let's talk a little bit about this Diddy stuff. I think we can have some to be continues with that. But man, let's just jump right into it. I mean, what has been your perspective with this whole this whole Diddy thing?
You call him a titty. This Diddy thing is kind of one of those things. It was what do you call it? A train wreck that was going to crash eventually. I don't know about everyone else. I don't know if anyone's taking. I'm pretty sure a lot of people taken by surprise, but for some reason I wasn't, because Diddy been in the game probably as long as I've been alive. Because I'm 34, so I'm pretty sure this dude been around and seen a lot and been in a lot of mess between in the early 90s up to this point. So to hear these type of rumors to come out, all these allegations, I'm just not surprised by any of it. It's very interesting how deep it has gotten, or how deep that is going. Ooh, are you gone?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. No. It's all focused on me.
No,
okay.
You just go ahead and talk. Go ahead.
Okay. But anyway, it's very interesting how deep it's gone, from the casting situation to the racketeering, I guess they say, the trafficking, all kind of stuff. I'm just not surprised to hear any of it. With that said, I know you had asked a couple questions. Like, for one, the first one is, do I believe that Diddy's an informant? And my take on that is, look here. If Al Sharpton was kind of exposed for being an informant, and that man was technically what you call a political public figure, I don't see why Diddy would be far-fetched from that notion. Although I will be curious of what exactly he was getting out of that. Like, was he getting immunity? Was he doing, like, what kind of, like, is that what he was getting? And of course, who was he? I'm curious who he going to expose, that we wouldn't be surprised that he exposes. I guess that'd be my take on that. But I'm pretty sure he got a whole cemetery of bones in his closet, and I'm pretty sure he knows a lot of people tea. I know the next question you had asked me about Jaguar Wright. To tell you the truth, y'all, I don't know who that lady is. I don't know where she came from. I don't know how she became, where do y'all dug her up from? I don't know who she is. I don't know where she came from. Like to me, people are quick to call people industry plant. I think she is a plant. Cause where did you come from? And I know you told me behind the scenes logic that she sang the hook on one of Jay-Z's songs, but shit, I don't know what the fuck that is. Like, you still don't know who you are. So with all this stuff that she been saying or whatnot, the first question is, how the hell did you know? And if say you did know, why are we just not hearing this from you anyway? Where are your receipts of all this? I'm not saying that it's any way that she's lying, but I damn sure ain't gonna say she's telling the truth either. I think right now, the things that she have said, these are not far-fetched things. These are things I'll go so far as to say I think most of us have heard it over the years. Again, we're talking about 30 years of shit that have went down. I'm pretty sure most of us have heard of most of it. The only people who may not be aware of this are people who are too young. So, again, Jaguar Wright, what's the end game here? Because you ain't getting your career back, whatever career that you had.
Well, let's unpack a little bit of some of the stuff that you've been talking about so far. So let's unpack. I want to unpack this Diddy being an informant.
Okay.
And so what I can tell you is I cannot prove or disprove that he is or isn't an informant. However, I can use the example of Al Sharpton.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the real thing. And what really is disappointing and troubling about Al Sharpton is that this man was an informant, or what we would say on the streets, a snitch. And he was right next to Martin Luther King. So it's not a reach, it's not a stretch to say that he contributed to the death of Martin Luther King, getting him set up, telling people, you know, his whereabouts, all the inside scoop. I mean, he was a fly on the wall to one of the most important, if not the most important people during that time. Now, based on my research, we know that Al Sharpton became an informant or a snitch with the government because he was basically a talent recruit for the mafia at one point.
Correct.
So the mafia found it incredibly difficult with the race relations in the inner city just to walk into a black neighborhood based on the relationships between Italians and blacks during that time, because you know there was a known trope. It was a known trope and profile of Italian mafias that they couldn't sell it to other Italians, that they were directed and ordered and mandated to sell to black folks. So that the tension between Italian immigrants and black folks in inner cities was pretty intense. So they had to get a black person to go recruit the talent to perform in the cabarets and the different nightclubs that they would acquire to launder their money through you know, their crime syndicates. So Al Sharpton was one of those people. He would go recruit the talent, bring them to the club, they would pay him. He became their inside person for that. What had happened was, according to what I read, is that Al Sharpton got caught up in some drug dealing himself. He started dabbling in that stuff. You know, they probably start, you know, giving him some, you know, some work. And he took that work into the inner city, you know what I'm saying, started selling it and got picked up. When he got picked up, they said, we want you to wear a wire. We want you to be an informant and take down these Italian mafia crime syndicates. So that's where it started. So we would be incredibly naive and clumsy. It'll be clumsy work to say, "Oh yeah, I'll tell on the Italians, but I ain't saying nothing about what Martin Luther King. I ain't gonna say that he's gonna be at the Lorraine Hotel, you know, waving at people from the balcony in Memphis, Tennessee." No, he knew what was on the line, and what was on the line was prison time and his freedom. So that being said, I can't prove it, and you're going to hear me a lot in this podcast use a term that I like called jigsaw. Now, if you go through different information sources, you can jigsaw information and be like, well, I can't prove it, but it does jigsaw. And one of the things that we can say about Diddy is we saw something jigsaw and it made sense and it created a picture of hip hop precisely when he came into the game. We saw the shiny suits. We start talking about, you know, crass consumer capitalism a lot, which you can acquire. And it was known in many hip hop circles that he was taking hip hop away from its grassroots, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like guerrilla marketing, you know, rapping in the streets to make more corporate, you know what I'm saying? It became more commercial.
Are you referring to Al Sharpton or Diddy?
I'm talking about Diddy.
Okay, go ahead.
And so that's why, you know, we can say that, I mean, it's plausible. It makes sense that he would be a plant. It makes sense that he would be an informant to go into the hip hop community and just totally change the complexion, the theme, and the direction that the music is going. Instead of being rooted in liberation and freedom and social justice, make it rooted in how much material possessions you can acquire. And we saw that with Notorious B.I.G., with Big, like how he took him from the streets and then made him into this ladies man and all the the material possessions he's has, like using different formulas and then acquiring this crew of producers called the Hit Squad, and then he's taking credit for everything. And there's allegations that he hired a person to help Big rhyme, write some of his rhyme. Not saying that Big took it, you know what I'm saying, right. Took the advice or took the raps that were written, but there is a lot of strong evidence around that song Juicy that it was actually taken from an artist down south, that Diddy just totally stole the flow, stole the beat, and all that, stole the whole idea, and then just gave it to Biggie because he had the more power to and more exposure to make money off of that. So we did see hip hop dramatically change once Diddy came in. We saw the death of two of the most, if not the most prominent rappers when Diddy came into the game. We lost Biggie and Pac around, this East Coast, West Coast stuff. Now, that also goes back to a book that they're saying that Kim Porter wrote, and some people were calling it BS. I read the book a couple times. I listened to it once, and then I actually read it. I don't think you can find it anymore because the person who released it, they are questioning and challenging his authenticity, that it actually is her book before she died. But there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. It talks about the real reason, allegedly, that Puffy and Tupac started to really beef and butt heads, saying it was over Pac being offended by Puffy asking him if he wanted to have sex with Kim Porter at the time, saying, oh, because Kim Porter and Pac had been together at one point. And years prior. I mean, like, in those celebrity circles, in the entertainment circles, that's, people, they're basically handed, they go from, lover to lover, quite often, maybe in the same night, and basically Puffy had, said that, I bet you I can make her orgasm before you. And he was like, hey, dude, you about to pull out your, your private part. So he was, and then he felt like he was disrespecting Kim too, Kim Porter. And he's like, man, why are you disrespecting this black woman? You know what I'm saying? And so they saying like, that's what really started, that was kind of the root of Tupac, with all his allegations and his lyrics saying that Puffy was bisexual or gay, but he was using a lot more derogatory language. He was calling them all kinds of stuff. But there's a lot of stuff in that book, and she makes a lot of allegations about the threesomes that whoever wrote the book, you know what I'm saying? I was told that the real book is out there and it's locked away. But there is some, and also in the book, it also says that allegedly that Diddy had hired Faith Evans to be in a relationship with Biggie, and that she was going, and basically she was an informant. She was basically leaking information to tell Diddy what Biggie's next moves were. And allegedly that's the reason why he began to kind of feel betrayed by Biggie, because Biggie wanted to get off the label and start his own stuff with Junior Mafia. And they were saying that there's actually some proof and some evidence that he was actually writing lyrics for Junior Mafia, which you could later cash in. And Puff kind of found out about that and wasn't really happy about that. That he was going to start his own thing called the Commission. I think that's what it was called.
I have heard about that before Biggie was murdered, that he was planning on leaving Bad Boy Records. They never expounded on why, but I remember hearing over the year that he wanted to leave that label.
Yeah, and how it played out in the book, allegedly, it wasn't so much that Diddy set him up, but he allowed him to be set up. Meaning he's saying basically that this dude is more he's more valuable to me dead than alive, and I feel betrayed. And this is how he repays me for me making him a big star. He wants to leave me, then I'm gonna allow him to be killed. I'm going to withdraw my protection from him. And it does jigsaw. It does jigsaw, because there are numerous people. Now, I don't know if they got in the room together and said, let's just all, say this, spread these rumors. I don't know if it's revisionist history, like one person starts saying something and they keep repeating it and then that becomes the truth. But it does jigsaw from numerous people that says that Biggie should not have even went to LA.
Absolutely.
And people said that they were telling him not to go. And there were people that were saying that they refused to go. Like May said, I'm not going. You just need to sit up and wait for this European tour. And that there was no reason for them to go and promote that album there in LA, let alone be going to these dang parties. And so, but then there's some people that says that that Diddy's car ran the red light and that Biggie's car didn't, and it was really meant for Diddy to get shot. It still fits into the theory that Diddy allowed him to be killed because he shouldn't have even been there. According to many accounts, Biggie had no business being there. That was an incredibly clumsy and dangerous trip that they made that was unnecessary. So
yeah, I remember some years back, after like maybe a few years, I remember my family was talking about that. And we still got to talk and say, I don't know. I said, I would have never, especially because the time that Biggie went to LA, that's when Tupac just got killed, I think several months prior to that. I think he got killed in September of the year before Biggie was murdered. And I've always wondered why the hell he took his ass to California. I'm like, at that point, with the tensions as high as it was back in that time, you couldn't pay me to go to LA. LA would have been off the roster for some years until that shit died down.
If I'm not mistaken, I think, you're right. Pac was killed in September, and if I'm not mistaken, Biggie was murdered in March. So it was a quick turnaround.
It was a quick turnaround. I don't know. I do kind of wonder though if Biggie kind of had a death wish for himself, and I'm not saying it to be in a mean way. I'm just speaking, just observing things, looking back at it, because I believe not too long before he got murdered, he got in a bad car accident. I think it was outside of Connecticut with him, Charlie Baltimore, and some other people. I remember watching a documentary on that before he was murdered or whatnot. And I also recall an interview that Biggie did when they were I think it was in that same documentary about, he said, I truly do believe that someone is out to kill me.
Yeah.
I really do believe somebody out to kill me. And I couldn't help, because I was a teenager watching it. I'm like, if you felt that way, why the hell would you go to a place, pretty much, LA is pretty much enemy territory during that time. I was like, it kind of makes me wonder that he just didn't want to say, look, I don't want to be running, looking on my shoulder for the rest of my life. Look, if I die, it is what the fuck it is. I kind of be wondering what goes through the mind of people who be in those situations. And I still kind of wonder who even orchestrated this whole East Coast, West Coast beef in the first place. I know it started when Pac got shot the first time around, and somehow Pac was under the impression that Biggie and Diddy had something to do with it.
Yeah. All I know is it just jigsaw really well that the complexion, the theme, and the energy of hip hop dramatically changed when Puff Daddy and Suge Knight came up on the scene. Let's not forget about Suge too.
Oh, absolutely.
And I wouldn't. And see, my thing is, I think it's as simple and complex as the industry and the powers that be get behind people like Suge and Puffy, who fit into this plantation prison politics. Now, we talked about this offline. I was telling you about how in this industry, in the entertainment industry, it provides incentives, rewards, and punishment for either you being a part of, these criminal acts and lying and stealing, or you not being a part of it. And what I mean by that, more likely than not, it provides incentives and rewards for just, being unkind and lying and stealing and cheating and hurting other people. And if you're not lying, stealing, cheating, being unkind, and hurting other people, you are at a strong deficit and disadvantage. So a lot of people will do a little or a lot of cheating just to be competitive. And I find it really interesting that two men who were really powerful for that block of time, they were backed by the industry for doing just really, cruel things to people. Just using like, prison, and plantation politics to get ahead. I mean, the manner in which both Suge Knight and Puffy were extremely successful, even though there was all kinds of rumors and proof that they were very hurtful in the communities that they, stuck their 10 toes in, is crazy work. That's crazy. And when you really look at it, like, why weren't other people who are positive, why weren't they backed by the industry? And then stuff kind of jigsaws, you know what I'm saying? Like, how is Suge Knight having all these ties to mafia, and got a club in Vegas? And we know that you can't have no kind of venue and no kind of businesses unless you got some kind of connection to the mafia. You can't have no business in Vegas. Come on now. That's all organized crime money. Whether they're still doing it or they did it in the past, Bugsy Siegel was a mafia guy, and he started Vegas. So, like, how is he having all this success when it's a known thing that he's bullying people, beating people up? You know what I mean? How does he have all this success?
It kind of, what? I'm not trying to stray off the topic, but it kind of makes me think back how hip hop started in the first place, and how in the beginning of it, in its birth, in its origin, it was very positive. It was uplifting. It was positive. But it's like when the late 90s came around, where what they call gangster rap came in, I think that's when the rap game truly took a turn. And I was like, I believe in the early 90s. And that's when the birth of the Diddy and the Suge Knight kind of came into the picture. And I think they just took the reins after that, because nobody want to hear the positive rap music. They didn't want to hear anything uplift. They didn't want to hear the fun music, like they say, for like Kid and Play and the rest of them. They thought that shit was corny. They couldn't relate to none of that shit. So when gangster rap came in, talking about the lifestyle of what many black people were living in during that time, and probably still now, they related to that shit. And of course, even despite the fact how toxic and dangerous it was, I think us as a community fed into that. And I think and once you feed into that, all it does is just go up from there. And that you start recruiting these type of men like the Suge Knight and Diddy's. And when you put them on this pedestal, they start having these connections, because they say, hey, these type of people got the control over the community, or they got their clout. We're going to use these people to promote X, Y, and Z, despite how dangerous and toxic it was. So I think a lot of that played a role in it. So in a sort of sense, in my opinion, I think we need to look at ourselves into why we allowed that to happen, why we were so involved in it to where people had lost their lives behind it. Now, we haven't seen anything like that anymore. I'm not sure that was a lesson learned. I mean, granted, I would say in the past decade or so, we have seen a lot of rappers lost their lives all the time. Along with what's that one guy from the Three Amigo, Takeoff? If that was his name.
Yeah.
Like him losing his life down in Houston, down here in Texas. But a lot of that stuff I don't think had anything to do with industry stuff. I don't recall. I think there was unfortunately some things that was some internal shit going on with them. But you're dead on though. I totally agree. That's more than likely what happened. And Suge Knight was considered the boogeyman of hip hop for many years. I mean, some people say 50 Cent was the last one, but
yeah, I think it's just like the industry has the power to create that imbalance. And you refer to it as gangster rap. And I refer to it as like street rap, or that, that
Sure.
really violent rap. But the industry has the power to regulate and control and siphon out and create this imbalance of, what's being played more. You know what I'm saying? And you're right. It made a transition from being fun and then being liberating and revolutionary, you know what I'm saying, to like an incredible imbalance. Really fostered in by NWA. That's why, some people, will hear me say that NWA was really COINTELPRO rap, you know what I'm saying, in reference to that division of the FBI that was created by J. Edgar Hoover to take down Black organizations, and the imbalance of NWA, with the exception of a few songs like, you know, F the Police and whatnot, the imbalance of NWA and other music of that genre and or the of that cloth and that theme, it really created this inaccurate, you know what I'm saying, description of hip hop just being, you know what I'm saying, about that, like anti-woman, misogynist, sexist, you know what I'm saying, really violent. And that was definitely intentional, because they started providing incentives for people to rap like that. I remember like even people like if you go back and you look at artists like MC Hammer, who had tremendous success just dancing, being positive, not cussing, there came a time where they wanted him to be a little bit more harder. You know what I'm saying? To sell more records. They were providing more incentives for that. Young MC tells a similar story, you know, of that. They wanted me to be hard. You know what I'm saying? And so everyone had to, you know, put on this almost this strong, you know, abusive and, you know, if not toxic, masculine, you know what I'm saying, uniform, even cosplaying for the streets, you know, and whatnot. Right. I just think that all plays a part into the success of certain individuals, you know what I'm saying, in the game, like Diddy, when we, you know, coming back to that. And I don't think it's a stretch to say he's an informant in the fashion that his power and his talent is basically, and I say this a lot, in the entertainment business, your greatest power and your greatest talent is to be willing to do something that someone else isn't willing to do. And he is willing to have these parties and then document them, save them, and then hold it over people's head in the form of, you know, white male or black male, wherever you want to call it, and extort different things out of them. So like if you say, for instance, if you have an artist performing, you know, under his label, and he's saying, I want you to write me a song and write these hits, and then we're not going to give you any of the publishing, we're not going to give you any royalties. And when the person says, hey man, I don't agree with that, and I'm going to fight you on this, I'm going to sue you, and I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go somewhere else. Then he starts saying, hey, but I got you on tape, you know what I'm saying, having sex with a minor. Or I got you on tape, participating in some homoerotic or homosexual acts, which would, you know, throw a little shade, you know what I'm saying, on who you are, because that's embarrassing to you. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's a stretch, you know what I'm saying, at all. But that extends to politicians too. That extends to very important people in corporate America. And so what you have now is just a network of people who are just doing, like, you know, criminal and unkind and deceitful stuff, just to be competitive, you know what I'm saying, in that industry. And so I don't think it's a stretch to be like, it's traffic. And one of the things that upset me a lot, well, not really upset me, it kind of bothered me a lot, is that people started to say, like, well, you know, the sex trafficking, man. So now if you just fly a girl out, now it's sex trafficking if you have sex with her. I'm like, y'all are being
dance on purpose.
Yeah, you guys are being purposely obtuse on purpose. Like, and I had to break it down to a couple people, like, that just kind of changes the game, man. You know, when you can just get, you know, your home raided because you're flying girls out and you're having sex. I mean, what does this world come to, though, you know? And I'm like, do I have to really break this down to you? You know, I had to break it down to a couple brothers. Like, here's the deal. What if we party in Vegas, and anytime you have drugs and alcohol involved in sexual intercourse, you got to be careful, because now you're like, does that person give you consent? Or does that person have the ability to give you consent based on the level of intoxication, you know what I'm saying, that they're under? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then here's the deal. What if we started off in Vegas, partying in Vegas, and you start using illegal drugs? Number one, you lose consciousness, and then you wake up in Miami. And you didn't have sex while you didn't, lost consciousness. That's rape. And then you didn't traveled across state lines. That's sex trafficking.
Yeah.
And you're giving certain incentives, and he's paying you certain things to compensate you for having sex. That's prostitution. Crossing state lines, that's sex trafficking. You know what I'm saying? And then you got throwing a couple guns in there with the serial code scratched out, and throw some illegal drugs in there. Now you got the now you got the alphabet boys on you. FBI, you know what I'm saying, Homeland Security, you know what I'm saying, tobacco, firearms, all those people, what they call them,
Yeah.
So it's like, unless you're flying girls out, getting them drunk or drugging them and having sex without consent, and then paying them afterwards or holding them against their will, that's another thing too.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't got no ability to get back. Okay, that's kidnapping. So unless you're doing all that, brothers, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Keep flying those girls out.
Yeah. First of all,
go ahead.
Let me throw this in here. First of all, the likes of the DJ RK, they ain't being punished for being freaks. That's not what that's not what this about. It's what you just explained. The illegal shit that you're doing. You're drugging these people. You crossing a state line to deliver bodies for people to have sexual things under fraud, coercion. That is rape, ladies and gentlemen. If you have to force somebody or extort somebody to have sex for you to get something, that is rape. All that falls under the category of rape. So if you're doing something like that, hell yeah, your ass gonna get caught up. Hell yes, your ass can go to jail. If you're not doing any of that, trust me, you ain't got nothing to worry about. You flying ladies out and y'all both under the consent that y'all both plan on having sex with each other, that's not how that works. And besides, no shade, most y'all ain't got no money to try to sex traffic nobody. Y'all ain't got that type of connections anyway. Cause that's some deep shit. Racketeering, that is some deep shit you got to be in. And I highly doubt most of you got that sort of connection like that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that I think it's a very complex business network when we have an economic structure that doesn't provide the same opportunities for women, especially Black women. And so it makes it really easy for women to get in the habit of saying, I'm going to use my body. I'm going to invest in my body to provide opportunities that I wouldn't just get by being, qualified, or to get opportunities that I've been denied since I was born, or since my gender, had been determined. And I can make an argument that once your gender is determined, before and after birth can determine the degree of your life based on statistics and data. And we just know that women are just pushed away from certain opportunities in life. Let me give you an example as an educator. Women are intentionally pushed away from playing certain types of sports because it makes them be a tomboy. They get shamed for being tomboy, too masculine, or they're pushed away from certain content areas because there's this implied, there's this passive, assumption that they're not smart enough to do science, to do math, and to do other things like be soldiers or be in the military, that. And so like these are things that in a very subtle, passive, and sometimes it's an aggressive way, women are pushed away from certain industries, car mechanics, builders, things of that nature, where they can make a lot of money. But for whatever reason, they're pushed away from that. You know what I'm saying? And so then when they grow up, they find other ways to try to compensate and sometimes overcompensate. And men can take advantage of that. And they, you know, so they start seeing women using their bodies to get money. And then they start creating these job opportunities based on, you know what I'm saying, they using sex, you know what I'm saying, and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And we see that a lot with OnlyFans. You know, that's why I'm kind of like, you know, I'm kind of happy for, you know, the people that, especially the women that can benefit from OnlyFans, because it kind of like they become their own pimp. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
And so, I will go. So I got a hard stop in 20 minutes, well, 19 minutes now, but we can still continue talking. But I find it interesting you bring up OnlyFans because I know, what it yesterday or day before yesterday, I know there was a complaint about, and one of the groups about women being on OnlyFans. I said, look here, the only reason you mad at OnlyFans is because now there's no longer a middleman collecting that money. That money going straight into that woman's pocket. And that's what pissed y'all off, because y'all don't mind free pussy the whole time, but once you put a price tag on it, now you got a problem with it. And now that's going straight to her pocket and not going through a man's hand. Now you got a problem with it. Because prostitution is the oldest profession. If it's not it's one of the oldest professions in the world. And they've been around for centuries. You hear me? You're talking about Egyptian days, centuries ago. So for when I hear
biblical
people complain, yeah, we talking about biblical times. Okay, they were fucking in the Bible then. So for y'all be trying to talk mess about OnlyFans, I was like, where all this hatred for prostitution back in the mid 2000s when it was a glorified profession to be a pimp? You want to bitch about it, complain about it then. So, right. So what changed? The pimp is no longer required. She could do it for the safetyness of her home or whatever she want to do her business at, and that means you got to pay to even enter them damn beautiful women here. You got to pay to get in.
Hey, everything's fun until the woman got the gun.
Exactly. Or she got the dildo or whatever. You're right. Everything is all fun and games until she got the toy, and she controlled the bank and she controlled the checkbook.
Yeah, I think this is a good segue too to go into, and we can do a part 2, but that's a good segue to go into a lot of the criticism that Kamala Harris got in the elections when she had that relationship with Mayor Brown. And it was clumsy work on both their parts because he had an affair. However, to say that, you know, she slept her way to the top, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's the deal. If she slept her way to the top, she must have been doing her job really well, because y'all complained about how many brothers that she locked up. You know what I'm saying? So
look here,
like you can't have it both ways. You know what I'm saying? Either she didn't do a good job and she slept her way to the top, or she did too good of a job, you know what I'm saying? And she incarcerated way too many people, and also, you know, parading around that one black mother that I know about that she put in jail for allowing her child to be truant. So the dynamics of how women have to navigate these different economic and leadership circles has everything to, you know, do with this conversation. Like the conversation of Diddy and even the conversation of Kamala Harris losing the election is both those share a nexus and an intersection of with sexism, misogyny, misogynoir, and just basically the plight of a woman trying to be competitive in a male-dominated leadership, you know what I'm saying, circles, you know what I'm saying, and what they'll do, you know, to try to get an edge or even just to be competitive, you know?
So, absolutely. And are we now into the election? Is that where we at?
Yeah, go ahead. We can speak a little because I know you got to go, you got to run, but
yeah, I mean, we can pick this. I'm not sure if you got plans later on tonight, but I can definitely come back and pick up this conversation. But it all depends on what you got planned for the evening,
right?
But about this election, I'm not surprised by the way that it turned. I mean, it's very unfortunate, but I already knew what the game was all about. And looking at those stats by how people voted, first of all, let me just go ahead and clear the air. More black men voted for Kamala than they did for Trump. Although 20% of them voted for Trump, which was a jump from 2016. I think it was like only 15, 60%. So it went up to the 20 this year. So a lot more black men did vote for Trump this time around than last time. I don't know why that is, but I guess that's another topic for another time. But black women, as always, we always showed out. But as someone broke down, we are a very small percentage in this country that our votes alone would not be able to turn the presidential election around. Unfortunately, because there's still more white women than all them black people, period. And of course, you want to talk about the Latinos. I mean, granted, Latinos not a race, but nonetheless, they tend to align their values with white patriarchy majority of the time. The reason why I was saying when she lost, I said, look here, the real reason why Kamala did not win, besides the fact she only had 100 days to get her campaign, which I find was very clumsy. I don't think that Biden should drop that ball like that. When the news came out that she was running, he was dropping out. I said this was a bad fucking time to do that shit there. I do not see this happen because that was just unwell planned. But okay, but the reason Kamala did not win is truly it's because of sexism and misogyny, especially women. I said it. It's really the women who change. Because again, I think there's slightly more women now, so women definitely could have changed the game, but many women didn't do that. And I'm not talking about black women. I'm talking about the other races of women. And the reason that is because many women identify as the men in their lives, whether it's her father, her brother, her husband, boyfriend. It does not matter. However, the men in her life vote, that is how she's going to vote. Because black, white, rich, or poor, for many women, being a woman is validated by the men in their lives. And that's why I say black women, I think we are a very unique group of women who has an identity outside of our men. Other groups of female groups can't say that or can't even operate that way. But
yeah, I think this is a good point for us to stop, because I'm gonna go ahead and give our listeners and our audience something to look forward to. I'm gonna have a little anticipation because I'm gonna hold off on what I think, and I have something to add on, and I do agree with you, but I think that what I have to say is, I feel like it was a perfect storm for her downfall and her demise not to win, of like all the things that she had to overcome, and not just sexism. I think it had a lot to do with her platform. I think it had a lot, and I think it had a lot to do with just the power of Trump too. I can't prove it. I can't. However, I don't think it's a reach, a stretch to say that he cheated.
Probably did.
Yeah, but I can't prove it, and I don't think it's a stretch either. However, I do agree with you. Like, no matter what her platform was, no matter if she had, instead of 104 days, if she was actually, you know what I'm saying, had, a full year or something, I think it all comes down to it. It wouldn't have mattered no matter what, because she identified as a black woman.
Probably so.
I don't think it would have mattered. But I will say, in defense of, indecisive voters, I will say that there was definitely some problematic things about her platform. I don't like how her team ran her campaign for president, but she only had like 104 days to do it anyways. She was at a strong disadvantage. But I honestly think I agree with you. I don't think no matter what she had to did, at the end of the day, they wasn't gonna let no woman be a president.
Yeah.
But we could come back. That gives some anticipation of what I wanted to say, because I still feel like there were some votes that weren't made. And even though that many black men did vote, there was a lot of black people that did not vote. And I think that black people did not vote is because we're tired of that strategy. Is that we don't really truly agree with the politics of the person. We're just trying to resist Trump. Like, your vote isn't really going towards because you really, really trust and believe in his opponent's politics. It's that you just don't want. We're voting so he won't be president again. And I don't think that's a tired, clumsy strategy. It's not responsible anymore, because that just means that our strategy is, we're just trying to don't make Trump president again. Like, when are we going to start voting for our needs and things of that nature? And if more Black people had voted, who is to say that we would have voted for Kamala?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that is true.
They might have voted for Cornel West because, they were saying, oh, well, vote for Cornel West is a vote for Trump. So it's like, even though you agree with the politics of Cornel West, reparations, love, freedom, stuff like that, don't vote for that. Vote for Kamala because she's got the better chance of beating Trump. And we need to come to a point starting today where we got to start cultivating and putting a candidate forward that, has our needs and that we're willing to vote for. Because she didn't need my vote anyways in Washington State. She was going to win overwhelmingly in Washington State. However, that being said, I had no problem voting for her, but I do have a problem voting for a person that says racism doesn't exist in America. And I do have a problem saying I can't do anything for Black folks. I'm not gonna push no reparations. Like, at some point, we have to understand that we have to have a candidate that's going to stand behind trying to eradicate or slow down or counter racism and to compensate Black folks for the generational harm, which will be some form of reparations. So
I do agree with what you're saying. I will also say I think the reason why a lot of people didn't vote because the options was just not a lot. Like, we really didn't have much to choose from. I mean, I know Cornel was part of it, but I didn't see Cornel have a campaign.
Nah.
So and I saw a lot of, I was looking at some of the votes. Some of the people did, a lot of people did vote for independent party. I'm like, yeah, but you voted for independent party, but these people didn't have no campaign. Like, these people are barely not even on the ballot. So I think I think I've said it before, every time we talk about voting, that people need to start voting within their towns and the county that they live in. It really starts, if you want better opponents or candidates for president, you have to start voting the person that you want. It starts small, because that's how they even get to the presidency. That's how they even get close to the presidency candidate ballot in the first place. It starts small in your county, so you have to operate from there. But yeah, Kamala did have some things, some tastes. I'm like, I don't know, lady. I don't know if that was cool or not. But also, we also got to come understand that white people do not like the word Black. Okay, they do not like it when that word get brought up. So while I agree with you, I don't like that take that she did, but she probably said it in the reason to appeal to the white mass, because that's exactly who she was fighting up against. That is her biggest window that she had to do, is to avoid using the word Black, because there's something about that word Black gives white people and non-black people, people of color who are not Black, in a frenzy. Because anything that's for Black people specifically, everybody would have a problem with it for some strange reason, but they don't mind coattailing on the shit that we accomplish. They don't mind doing that, but let that be something straight for Black people. They got all up in arms.
Right.
I ain't hear no white person complain about that stop Asian hate sort of bullshit. I ain't hear no white person complain about that. No one else complain about that but us, but we have every right to complain about that.
Yeah.
But let it be for Black people, everybody got a problem with it. So we are definitely in a tight spot of how we are viewed in this country in the terms of the type of rights that we are owed.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get Wayman on here for next. I think he'd be a good one for this when we do this continuation, because I'm gonna leave this right here. I'm gonna drop this right here before we get out of here. I don't think she should have ran as a Black woman. I think that was a bad move for her, because I think that she was already going to get the votes, being a woman of color. And I felt like running as a Black woman just left the door open, for people to make these criticisms, about her pandering to Black people, and she's not really Black. Like, I just don't. But like you said, she could have ran as an alien, and she still would have lost because she was a woman alien.
Yeah, and let me just call out, and before we wrap this up, I want to call out the Black community about them questioning Kamala's race, since we talking about her race. And the reason I'm calling the Black community out is that I don't recall this back and forth the question of Barack Obama's mixed heritage. We already knew that he was mixed. Well, but personally, I didn't know he was mixed till they said, I thought, oh, he was, because he like a straight black man to me. But I didn't know he was biracial. But nonetheless, I find it so interesting for the black community that you expect Kamala to tell you or explain to her heritage. Because last I checked, she ain't no different than Barack Obama. They both have one black parent, plus another parent that wasn't black.
They did do that a lot with Barack too, man.
They did. I don't recall it too much.
It was like they kept calling him Barry and stuff, and he didn't grow up black, and he ain't really black. They did a lot to him too, man. But I think there is enough evidence to say like there is a strategy that the system does. You know what I'm saying? I think they do that on purpose, though. They black people up here who have like, you know what I'm saying, quote unquote, mixed or blended ancestry on purpose, and they come across as kind of like racially ambiguous and kind of can, you know, play both sides. I think they do that on purpose, man.
Maybe so. I mean, if you want to talk about, because one thing about race is at least in America, race is a social construct, and it kind of go by what you look like, not necessarily your DNA. So, person, at least physically, phenotypically, I guess you could say, Barack and Kamala look more closer to black than the other race that they're mixed with. People may agree, disagree, that's fine, but I'm just talking about, if we want to talk about how America operates in race, that's how they tend to operate. But I just still find it very comical because, and I'm going to piss some people off before we get off. I mean, we're the same group of people who promotes the one drop rule. Although that's an ideology that us as black people did not create. That was an ideology created by white supremacy. That was not ours. So I find it so interesting that we had a problem with Kamala's or Barack Obama's mixed heritage, but we are the main promoters of that. Hell, we're the group. Hell, you want to go there, black men, you are the biggest procreators of biracial people. At least in this country, you are. So I find it hilarious that I'm seeing on. I'm like, really? The same group of people who promotes the one drop rule, y'all are the leading creators of biracials. Y'all tend to put biracial light-skinned people on a pedestal in the black community, and y'all are the main ones to complain about this. I find it very fucking comical. I said, at this rate, I bet not ever hear y'all. I bet not ever, the way y'all were going about that, I bet not ever y'all talking about, well, they got a little bit of black, so they make them black. Oh, really? Then why would Kamala Harris and Barack Obama was such a problem?
Right. Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I think black people, they play both sides of that with like claiming black people, what they even have like a one drop rule, but then at the same time, they questioning it because us being underpopulated and in America, like it's only like 10% of us, if not,
I think 13-14% of us.
Yeah, in America. So we try to get as many team members as possible on team blackness as possible. And sometimes it becomes a nuanced, you know what I'm saying? Because we want to claim some, you know what I'm saying, biracial, you know, people as black, but then other ones we don't, you know, we want to question it. But it also comes down to their politics and their relationship with the black community. If we feel like they're, you know, kind of sellouts or they're just agents, you know what I'm saying, for the colonizer. But the reason why we do that is because we're so outnumbered. And so we look towards accepting people as black people to get them on our team, our tribe, or our army, you know, to fight against, you know what I'm saying, racism. So it makes sense.
Okay.
And
I can
it's
see
a part of our trauma. And, you know, trauma is very nuanced. And we do certain things that aren't necessarily beneficial to a good, sound argument. And inevitably that aren't beneficial to us finding success in our plight against racism, because the whole point of racism and the reason why we know it's working is because there is so much disruption and confusion. So when you look at racism in its most effective form, it isn't to destroy a people, it's to disrupt them and keep them confused so they can work towards a machine. Because if anything, racism has taught us that white folks and whiteness and white supremacy need darker people to survive on this planet. So the job is not to destroy us. It's never to destroy us. It's just to disrupt us and disorient us. And if you look out throughout history, there's never been a campaign to destroy all Black, melanated, copper, brown people on the planet. That doesn't make any sense. You lost your workforce. You lost everything. You lost your sense of cool. You lost your marketing. You lost everything. Because we ought to understand that capitalism was not built on the backs of dead Black people. It was built on the backs of alive enslaved Black people.
And what you think about people who have said, I know we need to get off, but I'd have to ask this question. What you think about people? I've been hearing this since the election, and it had me thinking, like, you know, I was telling you behind the scene that I think this country is trying to regress back into the olden time. I think they're not only doing it through a political stand, but also through society and pop culture and trends and stuff. Right. What do you think of people thinking that with the Project 2025 coming down the pipeline, excuse me, they're trying to get rid of the other people of color, not necessarily Black people, but the people in between, like the Hispanics. They're trying to get rid of them of somehow. I don't know how, but they're trying to find ways to where it is just white and Black people, and everyone in between is kind of like irrelevant. I don't know.
Well, to answer that question, I think they've already started doing that with Latinos, and it's not physically getting rid of them, but it's I call it paper genocide. And I think they've started that by, like, through the census, they're getting a lot of Latinos to identify as white. That's been going on for years.
Yeah, going for
you're right. Get them to identify as white, and then also align themselves with certain politics that support white supremacy and a colonial, settler mindset. Then they're just as good as white folks. And that's the reason why I think we saw a lot of Latinos voting for Trump this time around, because his politics really support Latinos or documented immigrants who are following the rules. So those people have a certain disdain and disapproval for Latinos who come across the border illegally without the proper documentation. So they're able to basically create this talented 10th or this elite group of Latinos, and that's just as good as eliminating them physically and not allowing them over the borders or oppressing them in other ways. It's just to create this elite group of Latinos that they can pit against the ones with less privilege and power. That's what I think.
You're probably right, because I've always noticed that growing up in workforce, where I look at some of the ID card I had to look at a lot, and I'd be looking dead at them, but they mark down white on their driver, or Caucasian on their driver. I'm looking up at them like, motherfucker, you ain't no damn white man. What you doing this? But I kind of had to think about it. I said, maybe that's how they get their numbers, because white, they've been saying for a while, and I said it before on this show before, that the white race is becoming a minority in this country. It's dwindling down. I remember my college professor in government literally said that by 2025 there's gonna be less white people and gonna be more Hispanics. And this was in 2011, y'all. So fast forward, we enter in 2025, and that's exactly what we're seeing happening. But you're probably right.
And let's not be naive about it, right? There are large numbers of white Latinos. They exist. They are the descendants of the conquistadors or of the Spanish, colonizers that, came to that part of the world, So there is a such thing as a white Mexican. There's a such thing as a white Puerto Rican, a white Cuban. You see what I'm saying? So there are thousands, millions of white Latinos in this country, in this world, and in this Western hemisphere. But white people are doing exactly what they're supposed to do in celebration, recognition, and honor of racism. Protect their numbers. Protect their numbers. They know that their numbers are dwindling. They know on a biological and scientific level that essentially black, brown, copper people, melanated people can literally breed them out. So now, through paper documentation and paper genocide, they have to figure out how to increase their numbers, even if it's done, through clerical work. You know what I'm saying? Just saying, hey, man, if you want these benefits of white folks, Latinos, I'm urging you to, you know what I'm saying, sign up as a white person. Come join us, and we will protect, you know what I'm saying, your needs, you know what I'm saying, as such. They already did it with the Italians. They already did it with the European Jews. They already did it with the Irish. You feel me? These at one point were called ethnic white people. They weren't white people in the beginning.
They sure wasn't.
Well, when they came in over here on Ellis Island, all of a sudden they start changing the names now because they want to be a part of that whiteness. They want the benefits of being white and being documented as such. So next episode, I'm going to get a little bit more into why I think Kamala lost, other than just being a woman. You know what I'm saying? And we can even touch even more on this Diddy stuff as more stuff comes out. And we didn't really talk about Jaguar Wright. I want to talk about Jaguar Wright too.
I thought we did talk about her a little bit. We didn't go too far in her, but I did bring her up in the beginning.
Yeah. We didn't go too deep into it if she's telling the truth or not, but more on that later. But this has been Seed Talk, stuff to make your seeds walk. Make sure that you are liking, sharing, commenting. You know what? It's been so long since I've done this, and we've done this. I didn't forgot the format. I know we were supposed to do what's the action plan. We'll do that. Yeah.
I can start. I can do it real quick.
All right, go ahead. You go.
Okay, with everything going on, and I said it behind the scenes, I think at this point, my message is for Black women specifically. Black women, I think you need to focus on yourself. I say the support and the resource that you have, you need to focus on yourself and those who you are responsible for or obligated to directly. I think you need to focus on yourself. I think we did all we could. You did what you thought was right, and we did. The numbers said it all. I said, and for the other groups of people or the other groups of women that did not stand on business like they were supposed to, let them fend for themselves. Because I know a lot of those women like to come out, and you know what? That's a topic I do want to touch on. Although it's not about necessarily Black people, it's about the white women who did vote against their different interests from their husband, and they fear what may happen when he find out. Because I saw that was trending on TikTok a lot, and I had a lot to say about that. A lot of people got mad at me, but I don't care because I called the truth out the way it was. But we could talk about that next time. But I'm gonna say it's gonna be an interesting 4 years. All I'm gonna say is stand the fuck by and don't get yourself involved in any of this shit. Just worry about yourself. Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna end on this note. Freedom is an individual pursuit, and it's not a group project.
You just now open up a can of worms. There's a lot to unpack with that statement.
But go ahead.
To add on to what you're saying, I think the plan of action is we need to get back into our community grassroots, which starts community grassroots organizing, which starts in your home. And we need to figure out a value system. I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, that in your household, how are you going to make some money? How are you going to be contributing members of your community, your immediate community, and do the research on how we can start doing the work in our community to get the things that we need and what we want without waiting 4 years and voting for it. We need to figure out what we can get for our community aside from, in addition to voting, because voting can't be our only solution to getting what we need. And that's my plan of action. And more to come next time, man, and talk about why I think, Kamala Harris and her platform failed, and more on Diddy. It's been great. It's Seed Talk, stuff to make your seeds walk. We out.